for your wedding? Like, I just can't imagine that she asked me to do it.
When we're in these painful, hard points and we're in it, we can't always connect the dots.
I just knew that my life was going to be completely different.
A lot of times the opportunity presents itself and then we get to rise.
I'll never forget this phone call. She called me and said, "Hi, what are you doing?" And I said, I'm going to work. She said, "Well, we're moving to San Francisco and you're coming."
Today, I have Risa Kostis on the podcast. It is so fun because we go through her journey to the company that she owns today, which is called The Rescue Kit. And her journey is like all of ours. She bounces all over the place, has pivots, has changes, things that she thinks are going to go a certain way, end up going a different way. The resilience, the grit, the determination, her unbelievable ability to network and stay in contact with people and just keep those relationships going show in her pursuit and her passion and her development of the company called The Rescue Kit. So listen in today to get more inspiration on your own path and understand that it's not linear. And the things that we do and what calls to us and what inspires us, what lights us on fire are the things that we need to lean into, because as we get further down the road, we see how they all connect and create the story that is our one beautiful life that we're living. So thank you for listening, and here we go. Today, friends, I have a girlfriend on the podcast. Her name is Risa Kostis. She is amazing, and her story is one that inspires all of us to chase our dreams and make them reality. So, Risa, thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Jen. What an honor.
Yeah, it's so fun. We got to share your story. Okay, so fashion expert, business owner, all the things, cold plunger, like rudder, blah, 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 blah. Tell us.
Yeah,
about you.
That definitely starts off who I am. Cold plunger is the more recent of all of them, and I'm loving that side of me. I'm loving like who that person is so much. Yeah, I mean, it goes all the way back to the early days of just, loving getting dressed and loving costuming and being in theater. I was such a theater kid my whole life, and I loved being on stage and performing for people. And I did dance and sports, and I loved like the adrenaline and the rush of performance and being out there and winning and trying my best and leaving it all out on the field, leaving it all out on the stage. And my mom was a seamstress, so she really helped sort of harness this love of fashion. She would sit in her sewing room and I would just watch her push fabric through her sewing machine. And it was just something that really sparked this energy inside of me to then want to have her create things for me. And now it's turned into wanting to create things for myself and then offer not the exact same service, because I don't sew like she does, but offer that ability for people to envision what they want to look like and picture themselves that highest level of who they want to be and help them sort of create that life. So that's really like where I'm at now, is like, how do I take this passion for dressing people and loving the finished look and making it a reality, not just for myself, but for the people around me.
I love it. Okay, so you got into it because your mom, right, had a love for fashion and you kind of developed within you. What made you say, okay, I'm going to help? Because you started in weddings, right? Like, how did you get into that?
Yeah. So where this wanting to help other people, it really transcends weddings. So when I was 17, I was in a pretty horrific car accident. I had just graduated high school and was ready to go off to college. I was going to be a cheerleader at the University of Maine. And I went through a window of a car. The driver at the wheel just lost control, and we spun around and hit a tree. And I bounced. I was in the back seat, and I bounced through the side window, and it lacerated my right cheek and then bounced back to the other side of the car. And in that moment, when the passenger in the front seat turned around and was like, "Your face," I just knew that my life was going to be completely different. I just knew it. I could feel it. And I ended up needing 4 surgeries total. So the reconstructive surgery that night, and then 3 consecutive surgeries each year after. So the face would heal for a year. And then I went to the plastic surgeon, and he became, my little guardian angel. And we still talk today. I send him a Christmas card every year. He's the cutest.
No.
And he wears little bow ties. He was meant for me. He's got a great fashion sense. And, I just knew at that point in time, with everything that I had to go through after this car accident, the changing of the face, the post-traumatic stress, the anxiety, the depression, having to leave college because I had to leave the University of Maine after about a year and a half from PTSD. I was severely depressed. I wasn't attending classes. I had lost some short-term and long-term memory. I would have no idea what time it was. Just really confused about what was happening to my body and my brain. So I had to leave school. And at the time, it feels like this is in like the late 90s, early 2000s. So you feel like you're an outcast and nobody understands why you're leaving school. And at that time, TBI and traumatic brain injury was not the same discussion that it is today. And I'm sure you're nodding your head like you can relate. And I know you can.
Yeah, no, I just know from my car accident, the having to get back into my car and drive away again and like start driving again. It was a solid year, if not 2 years, that anytime a semi truck came past me on the highway, my heart rate would just go through the roof, right? No matter what. And then finally, all of a sudden one day, I'm like, oh my God, I can pass a semi truck and I'm not on white knuckling, gripping the handlebar and going forward. So these experiences, like our body keeps score. It remembers. It is something that just takes a while to process.
You are so right about that. I can relate so much to the white knuckling. Now, your accident was on a completely different level than mine, but your brain does program itself no matter what. Like when you have been through a trauma and when you have experienced something that is triggering and brings up memories and stays with you, no matter what the trauma, whether it's an accident or bullying or anything that you need to recalibrate your brain for, it's work. It takes a lot of work. And I think that for me is where all of my grit and all of my tenacity and all of my perseverance really kicked into high gear. It was like, you can sit and sulk about your facial scar, or you can follow your doctor's orders, stay out of the sun, do the best post-care you've ever done in your whole life. When he says deep tissue massage your face every night with vitamin E oil, you're doing it for an hour every night. And that's what I did. I mean, when I was told how to take care of it so it would look somewhat normal later in my life, I took that seriously. And I think it's really hard as an 18, 17, 18, 19-year-old kid to think like, you can't see the future. We always want to look back and tell ourselves like, gosh, I wish I would have done X, Y, or Z. For some reason, I followed the rules at that time. And there was a side to me that just didn't want to. I just wanted to throw in the towel. But I think when you are faced with a choice like that and you're thinking about like, what am I going to do to get through this? And then how am I going to use it to help people? Like that is the first thing that I thought of. So this mission to help people started with me needing to help myself, not to feel ugly when I went out into public and not to feel not good enough when I was up against other people for a job, or to feel confident when putting on makeup and learning all about skincare. Because these are all things I had to do at a really young age, way before YouTube tutorials and booming TikTok makeup artists were making waves. This is like the early days where if you wanted to learn how to do makeup, you had to go to LA and learn from, a professional makeup artist school, or, like anything in Hollywood to teach you these things about coverage for scars. I mean, I grew up in a small town in Maine. This was just not a conversation. So this early need and desire to help people came from that. It came from overcoming something for myself, showing myself that I was beautiful no matter how I looked like, no matter what I looked like, and how I showed up. I knew that it was inside of me. And I knew that if I could come out on the other side of that I had to coach people and teach people how to do that. And that was through this very random talent that I didn't know I had of completing this head to toe look for people. And once I left school, it's the time that I decided my mom, at the time was an educator and was like, you need to figure out what your life is going to be if it's not a speech pathologist from the University of Maine, and bless her heart, she a little bit of tough love there, but it really got me moving in the direction of taking care of myself and figuring out for myself, like, what was this path going to look like? Nobody was going to make that move for me. Nobody was going to be able to hold my hand through that. This was the kind of lesson I needed at an early age. So I left Maine, and I ended up just having a couple of odd jobs and having my summer job at the beach in Maine. And then I worked with developmental disability vocational program at a high school because my friend's dad was the principal and I needed benefits, and I was so young and I just needed a job, and he gave me a job at his school. So I got a paycheck and I had medical benefits, and it was really tough, especially because I was dealing with my own journey at that time, my own mental setbacks, but it definitely strengthened my empathy and my love for people and wanting to help people. I do believe, like, when I look back at all the dots that I've had to connect, that everything played a huge part. And after that, I decided I need to learn how to do makeup for people professionally and hair, and I need a trade. So I enrolled in a cosmetology school in Boston, and I moved there with a friend. I had a roommate, and I put myself through cosmetology school. And that was the beginnings of learning the fashion and beauty industry.
Wow. Wow. There's so much that just happened there, right? Like, I want to just dissect it a little bit so that everybody doesn't breeze through all these little lessons. One, it's amazing when someone that knows us gives us space to be safe, right? And your friend's dad who gave you that job that allowed you, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't the end game. It was something that allowed you to be you, work through some of your stuff and figure out what your next plan was. And acknowledging those people, because we all have them. It's so important. And it's so important that we in turn recognize that so we can do it for others. So I love that part of that story that you just shared. And then also, when we're in these painful, hard points, and we're in it, we can't always connect the dots, right? It's later in life that we can look back and be like, that's how this happened, or that's how this all worked so that I could get to where I needed to go. So if you're in it right now and you're listening to this episode, like, just stay with the process because eventually it's going to make sense. So I'm putting that out there. And then the last piece, because we're in a different era right now, right? Like, my kids are in high school and they're being preached all over social medias that college isn't necessary. When you and I were back then, like, college was the thing. Like, it was the only choice. There was no way that you were not going to college. And so for you to have that strength and courage and statement saying, like, this isn't working. I know this is serious. I know you had this path for me, which was good intentioned, but I need to do what's right for me. And I don't know if I would have had that strength at your age back then. Like, I think of who I was at 18 compared to who I am now, and yikes. So then you go to Boston and then you get into cosmetology because our pain so often becomes our purpose. And I love how, since you were learning how to do makeup on yourself and help yourself feel beautiful from the inside out, you said, okay, this is working for me. How do I help others with it?
You are so spot on. That is exactly how I was feeling. That's exactly, you took us right to that spot of where I felt like, I don't know, superwoman, even though I was going through so much. I felt like so empowered in that moment to say, I think I can turn this into something. I think I can learn this. Like, I felt like I could learn anything. I was one of those people, my sister always jokes, like, I'd start playing lacrosse and then you'd start playing lacrosse and you play varsity all 4 years or whatever. Like, you picked up anything and you just learned it. And I was always like, what the heck? But I did feel like I really was able to tap into that. And I'm thinking about it now. We're here like 23 plus years later. I'm thinking about, like, you just saying that really sparked something inside of me. Like, wow, I did do that. And I think back, It's
Yeah,
crazy.
you
And you're so right
did.
to give that message out to listeners right now who might feel like, oh, I don't want to go take that hostessing job at that restaurant while I build my business, or, I don't want to do this X, Y, and Z. But everything that you do is put there for you for a reason. So when I went to school and, learned this trade and graduated and got my diploma even before some of my friends finished college, which was interesting. It was around the same time, but some people didn't finish, some people fell off. And then of course there's the doctors and the lawyers, but like I finished something that I didn't think I was going to finish. So number one, like I completed something that I set out to do that I had no idea what I was doing. And it was really scary. I just remember I'd get called down to the school salon for a walk-in off the street, and I'd have to do like a roller set or a haircut or color somebody's hair, which nobody should ever give me coloring solution or materials ever again. But, it was just this moment of like, I completed this. Okay, so if I can complete this, it was like that process of starting to chip away. If I can complete this, what's next? Like somebody else give me something else. And at the time I hadn't even graduated from cosmetology school yet. And a girlfriend of mine called me and said, hey, I'm getting married. Like you got to do my hair and makeup. And I was like, for your wedding? Like, I just can't imagine that she asked me to do it. Well, she talked me into it, and I ended up doing both her and her maid of honor hair and makeup, and I sang in the wedding. So it was just this like really cool kind of moment for me. And I did it, even though it took like 3 trials, just so green and so just not knowledgeable in that space, because they don't really teach you updos in school. But I did it, and I just taught myself. And it was one of those moments where, when you're faced with something and you don't have a choice, you have to sink or swim. You have to go out and do it for yourself. Like you have to make that opportunity for yourself, because you're out there alone. Like you either need to make money on your own, or you have to figure it out. And so I figured it out, and it was the beginning of understanding that, if again, like another chipping away, like if I can do this, I can do this, and if I can do this, I can do the next thing.
Well, it's that momentum, right? It's the momentum piece that you're building. And that's what I think people, sometimes we have this big goal and that's so far away that it's hard for us to get the momentum to do it. And so then we have to bring it back into these little pieces. And a lot of times the opportunity presents itself and then we get to rise. It's very rare that we rise and then the opportunity comes, right? And so for you, with this girlfriend asking you to do an updo and the makeup, you hadn't done it before, but you did say no. You said, okay, I'll figure this out. And prior to YouTube and all the tutorials online, and it took you 3 tries. 3 tries. Who cares about 3 tries? I do my makeup daily now and it takes me 3 tries. Okay. I get like mascara in my eyeball like every other day. It's unbelievable. So 3 tries is amazing to me to even consider. But like, again, just try to like, because you're so full of all these billions of little golden nuggets, like momentum works, and you just have to get like the teeniest, tiniest little thing. And that progress gives you energy to give you to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. So you do the wedding makeup, and then where do you go? Like, what's next?
Then another friend of mine who was in that same friend group said, she called me, and I was about to get a spot on Newbury Street in Boston as a hairstylist full time. I had been working at this salon. I worked the front desk and I swept hair, and I was an assistant. I washed hair for like people like Nancy Kerrigan and Cam Neely and like all these cool people. And I'll never forget this phone call. She called me and said, hi, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to work. She said, well, we're moving to San Francisco and you're coming. And I said, who's moving to San Francisco? And she mentioned a couple of our girlfriends. And I was like, where is San Francisco? I'm from a small town in Maine. I had no idea where that even was. And she said, California, you're going to love it. So next thing I know, I'm calling my parents and I'm like, you know what? I guess I'm moving to California. And they were both like, good, bye. There's the door. Like they definitely always encouraged us to get out of town. And all 3 of us girls have, moved out of Maine as fast as we could. And they were so encouraging. And I remember she said, you have enough space to pack a backpack and a pillow. I was like, okay. So I shipped some stuff ahead of me, and two of the girls left in a caravan, about a week before myself and this other gal that I barely knew. So I drove in the car cross country with this girl I barely knew in this rickety RAV4. I mean, we still laugh to this day. That was when there were no GPS maps on your phone. So paper maps. And it was.
Oh, wait. Let's just stop on the paper maps for a minute, okay? So my dad is in sales, furniture sales. And like, of course, when I was in college, he's like, yeah, this is a great career. You're going to follow down my footsteps, blah, 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 blah. Let me help you. And so he sends me out on this sales call in Chicago. Like, no debit, like no sampling, no trading, no whatever, right? Like you're a Drummond, sales, you'll be fine. And I had to drive around, and all of a sudden I'm like, every single building has bars on the windows and doors and everything. Like, where am I? So like, I have to pull over to a gas station to call from the gas station to tell my dad, like, I don't know where I am. Like, I'm just letting you know. And my dad's like, why would you even stop at that side of the town? Like, get in the car, just drive. Like, you shouldn't be there. And I'm like, oh my God. So I could totally remember this era. Right? And you're going across the country. Like, I love this. These are the stories. I have children. These are the stories I want my kids to come home with someday. Like, Mom, I'm going to go do this. And they're going to have the mom that's like, go, just like your parents. Okay. So back to San Francisco. Sorry. This is just funny.
My dad was a real estate appraiser. So he drew every time we needed directions in Maine, he would take out a piece of paper and he would draw us with a pencil, a map, and write like the street names and that point the arrow direction. And like, he still does it to this day. And so I felt like I was like, if anyone can navigate a paper map, it's me. Right. But I mean, it was, when I think back now, this world is like, it's always scary, right? At every stage in time. But I think back now, like, and I think if I did have kids, like, you sound like way cooler than I would be as a parent. Like, I'm a little bit paranoid. I'd be like, you can't do that. But I think about it, and it was hands down the greatest decision I ever made in my life. I mean, that set me up for the rest of my life. It set me up for being completely fearless for any move from one company to another, one city to another, one country to another. I mean, I've packed up and moved to Italy for a few months by myself too. I mean, it set me up for total success. And I think the other thing, going back to the trauma, is when you do experience something like that, you know this better than anyone, I think, you have to be fearless. You are given a chance. You are given a second chance, and you are given a chance that you should not mess up. You should just go. And it's an opportunity to embark on a journey, right? A second time.
Yeah, no, I think you're given like a chance, like all of a sudden you realize, and that's like because you're here and you didn't die that first time. Like, I think the first time you're so afraid of messing up that you're always listening to like outside sources and how should I do this and what should this look like? And you live from this, or at least for me, it was this land of should. And then when I got into that car accident, I realized there is no messing this up. Like, this is life. Life is messy. No matter what decision you make, that's going to give you on a trajectory of these other things and these other things and these other things. And it's the story you tell yourself as whether that's a good or bad thing. It's not the actual thing. It's the response that you have to the thing. And so for me, that second chance was, I can't mess it up. So let's go have fun and do this thing called life and live it.
Yeah, totally. It's such a great perspective, right? Like, you're like, what else? Something's already gone wrong. So, and I survived that. So if something else goes wrong, I'll survive that too. So we ended up, in San Francisco, and no place to live. None of us had jobs yet. I mean, we just literally packed up and took a chance. And I remember us finding an apartment, and we couldn't get in for 30 days. So we got back in the car, drove down the coast of California, went to Disneyland, stayed with friends in Ventura. Like, we just experienced life. And it was such a beautiful way to be, and to be, it was the beginning for me of like those college years of really having fun, really having good, close girlfriends. I feel like it was a second chance at kind of that experience as well. But in the real world, of course. So when we finally got back up to San Francisco, I'll remember, I won't forget this either. I was the first one, I think, to get a job. There might have been one other girl who had like a marketing job lined up, and I have no degree. So I'm sitting, and my license is in Massachusetts at the time. So to do hair, I'm not licensed in California. So I'm really starting from scratch. But I had applied for a job at a day spa that was opening on Fillmore Street, and they called me, and I was still driving back up the coast from Disney, living my best life. And they called me and said, we'd like to hire you. Can you come in and, start training? And so it was really exciting. So I started this job and I loved it, and it was great. And I was at the front desk, so just a receptionist, but it was an opportunity for me to do hair and makeup for clients that I could get that were walking through the door of the spa. So I had told the owner, I'm a licensed hairstylist. I don't have my aesthetics license, so I can't do anything here at your spa. But since you don't offer hair and makeup services, could I sort of network for myself and tell people that I do hair and makeup for weddings as they come in, if there are any brides that we get as clients? And she was all for it. She was so supportive, and we had a great relationship. And I had a girlfriend of mine make some business cards and design some business cards for me. I still have them. And I called myself a personal stylist, and I just started marketing myself to people. And there were still like 3 trials every time, but I ended up, that was my first taste of entrepreneurism. And that was really like starting my business on the side and becoming a 10% entrepreneur, and having my regular 9-to-5 job and hustling on the side. And I had always done, multiple jobs alongside each other, and always just felt like I needed to stay really busy. But that was the real first taste of entrepreneurism and my networking capabilities, which I will say, I feel like networking is one of my superpowers for sure. So the coolest part about that was, after I had done about 12 brides or so and had been working at the spa for a little while, I met this client who would come into the spa 2 to 3 times a week, clacking her heels on the travertine, and was so fabulous. Head to toe designer labels, a different handbag every day. And I was like, who is this woman? I need to be friends with her. I need to know what her story is. So I just started chatting her up and always taking really good care of her. Turned out she was a fashion designer, and she was had just broken into the handbag industry and launched a handbag company that was highly sought after by so many celebrities and was getting a ton of press, and was just starting to really like make it and kind of hit that boom. So I befriended her and told her, if I can do anything to help you, I love fashion. I love, I do hair and makeup. I can do your hair and makeup for headshots or public appearances or whatever you need. I'll do your nails. I know how to do nails too. I learned that in school. I was just like, whatever, just throwing caution to the wind there and just whatever. And we ended up becoming really close, and she hired me to do some photo shoot styling for the handbags, and when they would do a campaign shoot, or this was like before social media. So if they were trying to submit something to a magazine or needed some printed materials. So I started to be taken under her wing and learn her business. So now at this point, I've culminated all this like experience in fashion and beauty, and I'm really starting to get my feet wet in terms of like this head to toe look. And about a year or so of befriending her and doing that work and learning everything that there was to know about how to run her small business and how to style a photo shoot and network with people, and just this like I would help her like pick her outfits when I did her hair and makeup. I realized, there might be something more for me here. And I think I have a knack for this finished look. Like I didn't love the cutting and coloring when I was doing hair, but I loved putting this head to toe look together. So I announced to her on one of the days that I was doing her headshot hair and makeup, I just said to her, you know what? I think I'm going to move to LA. I think LA is where I need to be. I think I need to learn how to really become a wardrobe stylist. And I think it's time for a change. And she looked at me and she turned around in the chair. I was doing her hair, and she was like, don't go, stay here, work for me. I have a job for you. I've been discussing it with my team, and we want to hire you. We'll pay you $40,000 in benefits. And I was like, $40,000? Like, I thought I was so rich. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And I stayed. And that's how I broke into the fashion industry. This is a really long story, Jen. I'm sorry.
No, but I think it's good, right? I mean, it's good for us to
Yeah.
see you have to make the opportunity. If we look at your story, you saw somebody that you were interested in, you took initiative to take extra care of them, to take extra notice of them, to make yourself available for any service possible that that human could need because you want, like, you saw potential, you saw something for yourself. And I think all of us, if we really get honest, we know in our lives right now, people that can help get us to the next level. And the difference is like you put action behind that thought. And then you continue to nurture that relationship, allowed it to, you made yourself indispensable. And that's what we need to do. Like I would hire anybody at any point if they just started were around and helping and all this kind of stuff and all of a sudden they become indispensable. Yeah, you're on payroll. Thank you. I there's a ton of things that opportunity presents itself. So then you get the job, right? You get the benefits, which feels all big girl, especially back then, right? And okay, so let's fast forward because there's a whole bunch more still coming that's so good. So talk about the next phase.
Yeah. So after doing that for a couple of years, it was the most incredible experience. It was a little bit of Devil Wears Prada. I will say there was a lot that happened in that company and it was a lot of highs and lows, I will say, but it was an incredible experience. I learned everything about how to run a startup business, how to start an e-commerce site, production, manufacturing, being in 7 different time zones. And it took me all around the world. I did sample sales at Harpo Studios in Oprah's green room for her staff. I was doing trade shows in New York, LA, Las Vegas, Paris. I ended up traveling with the designer overseas to Barcelona, Berlin. I spent a month in Florence. I learned everything that there was to know about this handbag industry and about running this kind of company. And it was the beginnings for me of like, if I can be at this top level and I can be alongside this designer because there weren't a lot of people in the company and I can have this responsibility of placing the hardware orders overseas or overseeing a factory visit in Florence. I knew that if they trusted me to do it, it was something that I could eventually do on my own. So 2.5 years with the company. Unfortunately, it ended up folding. It was right before the recession in 2008. And the CEO at the time looked at me and said, we are probably not going to make it. So you should probably start looking for another job. And I just remember those words and thinking, okay, here we are back to like ground zero, right? Like no degree still. And now at this point, like I really was fighting with people and to get jobs. Like I really felt like it was going to be tooth and nail I felt like this was going to be my career. So starting over again, what was I going to do? But that tenacity kicks in and that grit kicks in and it's like, why not me? Why not me? So the networking, again, like I can't stress enough how important it is. It's not what you know, it's who you know. You can learn anything if you have enough grit and perseverance, but it's all about who you know and how you treat people.
And how you treat people and who knows you, right? Like who knows you? Like I think that's a big piece of it. It's like who you know, but then who you get known for. So then people are like, oh, I need this. I'm going to call Risa. I need this. I'm going to call Risa.
But at that time, it's a great point. But at that time, I hadn't reached that level yet, Jen. So at that point, too, it's like in my career, it wasn't really, they did know me, but like didn't know what I had to maybe offer at that time. Now, 10 years into my styling career and 20 years later, I would say I could look to that as a resource, but it takes time. So until then, I do feel like you have to stand out. And no matter if they really know you or not, they might have heard your name, they might have come across you, maybe you helped them out, like maybe you held the door open for them, whatever it is, because you should do it for everyone and introduced yourself because you should do that to everyone. But at that point, it was really about like the people whose business cards I had kept. And I had this trick and that was when like paper business cards were really important. Everywhere I went, I got somebody's card and immediately I always carried a pen on me. I wrote down where I met them, the date that I met them, and if they said anything poignant or like what their role was. And I still have that book of all of those business cards from all those years ago because you just never know, right? I'm sure those people don't work there anymore. But The point is that, if you can operate in a way where, you remember everything about people and you connect with them in a certain way, you can stand out. So I made a couple phone calls to some girlfriends that I had met through trade shows in New York City and said, I have to move to New York. There's nothing here for me in San Francisco. And at the time I had a love interest on the East Coast that I was long distance with. I thought, this is my opportunity to maybe go back east, be closer to home, and experience New York City, because I was like, you know what, at this point, like, I need to hit every major fashion city that exists. So I called a couple friends, got a couple interviews, ended up flying out for some interviews. And I did get a job beating out, like, I would say 60 girls or so for an in-house public relations job at a women's clothing line in Manhattan. So made in the USA, made in the Garment Center, in the same building as Christian Louboutin. And I got this job in public relations with no experience in public relations. But if that's any testament to the networking skills that I had culminated at that time, then I mean, I would say like that there's no better like representation, no better career representation than working in PR. So, but then I just remember like sitting at this desk and thinking, I have no idea how to do this job. Like, I don't know any of the terminology. I don't know any of the editors. I have no idea how to pitch a collection to a magazine. And it was another sink or swim moment. And it was now at this point, this is how I'm living my life, Jen. Like, this is who I am. Like, this is.
I think I see a theme. Okay. I'm just saying, if we connect the deals, there's a little bit of a theme. Throw me the job, I'll figure it out. Throw me the job, I'll figure it out. That's a great, great thing to be known for.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I'm still doing it to this day. But it was a great experience. And I ended up getting us published in a ton of great magazines, Women's Wear Daily, Lucky, InStyle, and have actually had a lot of those relationships now in these years in my life, like in my like later adult years now. I have actually come full circle with a lot of those relationships with editors and people that I knew that worked at magazines. And one of my relationships from People magazine way back then in 2008 actually just helped us get into the Oscar swag bags for my now company. So this moral of like staying in touch with people and being kind and letting them know, like you said, that you're there and vice versa, and that you're available to them for whatever that means, it's so crucial to success.
Yeah. Okay, keep fast forwarding because we have good stuff coming.
Okay. Yes. So fast forward to 2010, I decided it was time for me to finally get that piece of paper. I knew, and I didn't touch on this, but when I was in San Francisco before I left for New York City, I was sitting around with my girlfriends and we were having kind of a goodbye sort of like lunch. And we were sitting on the floor of one of my next door neighbor's apartment. And I had said to them, I said, I envision for myself this one-stop shop wedding company. Like, I don't know what that means. I pictured in my head a huge building that would exist, that would have maybe photography and videography on one floor and florists on another floor. And I just always thought like I wanted to do something in the wedding industry. I had been singing in weddings since the time that I was 10, and I was always a maid of honor. I think I've been the maid of honor like 7 times, and I've been in upwards of 15 weddings or something. And I just knew at that time that there was an opportunity for me in that industry. And I just loved weddings. And so I always thought it's going to be a place where people can come to me to get everything all in one place. And I wrote it down in a journal. I shared it with my girlfriends, and this was like 2007. And I came up with my name, Restyle Consulting, at the time. Didn't know what I would do with it. So cut to 2010, I moved from New York City to Arizona, and I chose Arizona because I'm a golfer. I love to play golf, and I have some family out here, and my sister was living here at the time and my other one in Boulder. So I wanted to be really close to both of them. I think something inside of me always felt like maybe I wasn't good enough without having that college degree. And maybe it was something that I needed in order to be taken seriously in the business world or to be an entrepreneur and start my own business. I felt like if I ever needed to fall back and I did really need to start interviewing again, that having it would put me, with all of my real world experience in a really good position to get any job that I wanted. So I told myself, this is something that I want to do for me. So I took myself to college at 29 and sat in the front row and like raised my hand for everything. And finally finished when I turned 31 from ASU with high honors in communications with a minor in media analysis. And I will say that it was one of those moments where it was very much an I did it moment. I wasn't the best student, in high school. I made honor roll, but I did not apply myself. I was always a creative. I always wanted to do sports and sing and do anything I could to not be an academic student. I just wanted to be there for the sports and to be social and do plays and such. So for me, it was a huge accomplishment and something I felt like I really needed. So I got that degree, took myself back to Florence for an actual vacation for 3 months. That was my graduation gift to myself. Got the opportunity to blog for an Italian tourism company while I was over there. So that was like when the blogging world was kind of just starting to pick up. Got to experience all of their really cool tours and horse and carriage rides and Vespa rides through Chianti. And it was just the most incredible experience ever. And I was able to do that because of a relationship I had built in Italy when I was there for work years earlier to a guy that I knew that worked at a hotel and ended up starting this tourism company. So I called him and was like, Luca, I'm coming to Italy. And he set me all up in this amazing apartment and gave me a job. I got to hang out with him and his friends and meet people. And it was just a really cool experience. So came back to Phoenix and decided, okay, now is the time to start my company. And I had no idea what it would be. I just knew that I wanted to be somebody that people look to as a style authority and to get them dressed for the most important moments of their life. And so that's when I started my company, Restyle Consulting, officially in 2014. It's a lot.
No. It's good. It's good. I mean, it's showing like the power of nurturing relationships. It's showing the power of doing something for yourself and how you come to it with a different sense of pride when you accomplish it because it's something you set out to do instead of being the path that you're supposed to take. So I love that piece. And then it's fun to see how you had this vision way back in 2007. Now all of a sudden it's coming to life in 2014, but there's still more. So keep giving us the goods.
There's still more. So I started in the styling business as the go-to family stylist. So a girlfriend of mine is a photographer, and she had a company doing headshots and family holiday photos for people and did dozens of them, of course, leading up to the holidays. So it started as an added service and an add-on to her photography as somebody that would dress the families that she would photograph. And while I started doing that, I also started cleaning out closets. And I actually just, funny enough, got hired by my very first closet clean out styling client to style her for her big 50th birthday. So that was really fun. But it started in that space, and I knew I needed to sort of establish myself and establish a routine. And I was starting from nothing. I had no idea how to run a successful styling business. There was really no styling software at the time, and there was just no way to sort of keep things organized and bill people. And as a creative, like the billing department, you don't want to be both, and it's always really hard. But I needed to be a one-stop shop. So started with families, and then it slowly started to grow. And it was like, oh, you do families? Can you take me shopping? And can you style me for this event? And it sort of grew from this really small, I definitely was not charging my worth at the time, working really, really, really hard and really doing like that full stylist schlepping routine where you're going all around town to all the stores you can, paying for things out of pocket, bringing it to your clients, doing multiple fittings. And then at the time, like I definitely started with the hardest thing, which is family.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine. Like I think of my family. I mean, it would be $1 billion to have somebody come and dress all these people. One, their opinions, and two, there's 7 of them. And it's like insanity. So I'm sitting here thinking like, way to dive in deep a theme of your life. I mean, wow. Okay. But I really I want to get, so all this styling stuff, it keeps kind of evolving or whatever, but like, let's get to like the kit because the kit's like my favorite part of the whole story. So let's fast forward to there.
let's get to the kit. So as a stylist, you have to have your professional kit. You cannot go to a photo shoot or on set without all the tools to help manipulate the clothing and clip it if it's too big, double stick tape, lint roll, steam, like all of the things. So I started to read a bunch of books. I read what Rachel Zoe was bringing on set, and I started, obviously experiencing some things on set that I was either not able to solve or was able to solve because I had things already on hand. So I developed this incredible, huge, massive professional styling kit that I would take everywhere with me. I mean, you name it, it had like masking tape and gaffer's tape and even like flashlights. You just never know what you're going to need. And I would find myself saving the day for so many clients. And as I started to grow the business, I really started to tap into the wedding industry and started working with brides, and photographers would add me on as a service for their brides, where I would come on the wedding day and do this thing that I call the bride's best friend service. And I would be there to place the veil and make sure that the train was perfect for all the professional photos and just everything that the bride would need to make sure that she was picture perfect for all photography and videography. Because for brides, that's one of the greatest ROIs of their wedding day, is the photos and the video to look back on. So I would be hired to come in and be right by her side the whole time. There would be times where real life disasters would happen. And I just remember being on location for this bride's wedding day, and I was the last one to leave the room. I wasn't getting paid to do this service at the time. Photographers were paying me in photos for my portfolio. So I was on location with a bride, and a bridesmaid came running down the hall. I was the last one to leave the room, making sure that the hotel key was present, just all the cleanup. And she came running down the hall and said, "We need you." And somebody had stepped on the back of her dress, zipper completely busted. And if you know anything about zippers, once they break, they either need to be replaced or you're sewing that person into their dress. And it was 105 degrees in Arizona. I just remember being up underneath her tulle skirt thinking to myself, how am I going to fix this dress? I was not a sewer. And after that, I've had many sewing lessons from my mom since then, but it was such a light bulb moment for me because I had to sew her in. I had to super glue parts of her dress, and I had to get her out for first look in a moment's notice. It was like being behind the scenes on a runway. And poor thing had to have her makeup all redone. Like, she just was in tears, and it was so devastating for her. But I realized at that time, if I wasn't there and she had said it to me, if you were not here, I would not have walked down the aisle. And I just had like my aha moment. And I was like, I can't be at every wedding. If this is happening right now in Arizona, chances are it's happening across the country. I can't leave my kit behind when I go to a wedding. And I just had this light bulb moment where I need to make this a consumer product. So I started developing what is now called the Rescue Kit Company. And I worked really hard behind the scenes to, get my trademark and get the name. And I told my sister about it, who is one of my most trusted confidants. And I said, I think this might be a good idea. What do you think? And she was like, I love it. Let me bring it to my husband. So he's a businessman as well. And she's like, he will tell you honestly, what he thinks. And she came back to me and she said, Zach thinks it's a great idea. I think you should do it. And I was like, I'm doing it, and I was all set, and I was going to get an investor, and I was going to really go for it. And a few months later, my sister called me and she said, remember that kit? I was like, yeah, I'm in it every day. She's like, I think I want to join you. I think I want in. And it was the best moment of my life, because to have my sister by my side as my business partner and somebody who, she basically came out of like stay-at-home motherhood, and she's an occupational therapist by trade. So she also loves taking care of people. But to have her stop what she was doing and join me has been like the greatest part of this whole entire journey. But here we are 3.5 years later, and we did launch, I will say, right before the pandemic hit. So we launched in December of 2019, and we only had a short time on the market before weddings came to an abrupt halt. Luckily, we made it through, and today we now work with multiple hotels and service, direct to consumer, so many brides and so many people who come to us as a trusted fashion emergency kit retailer.
This is so awesome, because I think all the little pieces that we got to discuss of the evolution and the ping pong in the movie, and then you look at it now and you're like, oh, this puzzle piece makes sense. I see how it fits in. And the rescue kit company is your baby and it's growing, and anybody listening can buy it. And I'm encouraging you to buy it just to support a hustle, like support the hustle, and then figure out who you're going to give it to if you don't need it. But I promise you, like just having it at your house, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, I've got a solution for that in my rescue kit. So,
That's right. Well, and we have what's called the photo shoot kit as well. So we developed that for people who are either in front of or behind the lens. So influencers, photographers, videographers, people who take the stage and speak like you. Everyone needs these fashion emergency kit items in like their back pocket. I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody take the stage with wrinkles in their shirt. And just, what's really cool is that my experience working with people and having to be solution based for essentially my entire life, right? Like I have had to come up with a solution for everything, and I've had to do it quickly because either my bank account depended on it, or just timing in my life depended on it, or maybe I was prepping somebody to go down the runway. I've styled runway shows before. No matter what, there's always this level of like immediacy and solution-based work ethic for who I am. And I've had to really go it on my own. So this product, it has been tested, used, and created so people can not only empower themselves, but be their own hero in a moment's time. It is me. It's the spirit of me in a bag. And I think it's important for people to know that, like, when you create a product and when you fulfill a need and when you save the day for people, like nothing can be more fulfilling, I don't think, than seeing your product used by people and having it work for them, and having them then come to you and say, you were with me on my wedding day. You were there. We said your name like multiple times, and Risa's kit and the kit and rescue kit. And just to know that I'm with people is probably the greatest gift that anyone could ever give me.
Oh, for sure. I love it. Okay, so what's everybody's favorite item in the kit?
So everyone loves our double stick tape. It's called our rescue tape, and it's super strength rescue tape. So we actually worked with a tape company to develop this tape, and I would venture to say it is the stickiest and most long-lasting double stick on the market, and we love it. I actually saw somebody doing an Instagram reel the other day about Top Stick, which is what I used to use, but we developed something even better than Top Stick. So, so there's that. And then everyone loves our makeup face shield. So it's like almost like a hairnet that goes over the front of your face, and you place it over your face after you have a full face of makeup if you have to pull something overhead so makeup doesn't transfer to your clothing. How many times are you in a dressing room trying things on, and then you love the shirt, but you've already like swiped all your own makeup all over it. You don't even want to buy it at that point. And then you feel bad putting it back out on the retail floor. So we love this product just because it just makes sense, and it saves clothing and it saves your makeup.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yay.
Heavy hitters for sure.
All right. How do we get it? Where do we buy it? What do we do? Tell us.
You head to therescuekitco.com and you can buy it right there. And we can create a code for you and your listeners, Jenn, if you'd like. So you can just let me know what you want that to be, and you can put it in the show notes. But and you can also find us on Instagram at therescuekitco. And you can always follow me at Risa Kostis or risakostis.com, and you can buy directly through there as well.
I love it. And you can check out some of my Instagram postings because Risa helps style me at times. So I'll make sure that we give her credit, and you guys can see some of the magic of her work, because if you know me, I'm in leggings and a tank top or long sleeve tee all day long, and she does magic for that other look that I have. So there we go. But I want to thank you so much, Risa, for sharing your story, because it is one of the journey, right? The journey that we take to get to the destination that we desire. And how that evolves and comes to fruition is different and magic for each of us. And again, the number of times that you've been thrown into the fire and then been able to come out and rise above is inspiring and helps us all find courage on our own path. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenn.